33 important things to know for using past simple with 600 sample sentences. Contents. Verb forms. Statements. Ed. D. IED. 1. Irregular verbs. 2. Did. 3. Was. 4. Were. 5. Had. 6. Used. 2. 7. Asked. 8. Told. 9. Said. 10. Negative. Did not. Didn't. 11. Was not. Wasn't. 12. Were not. Weren't. 13. Questions. Yes, no questions, and tag questions. Did. 14. Was. 15. Were. 16. WH. Questions. WH. Did. Was. Were. 17. WH. Questions about the subject. 18. Important prepositions. Ago. 19. For. 20. Until. 21. Before. 22. Important conjunctions. When. 23. And. 24. Then. 25. While. 26. Since. 27. Some structures with past simple. If I were. 28. If. Did. Would. Do. 29. Would rather somebody. Did. 30. Have plus past participle with past simple. 31. I wish. Did. Was. Were. 32. It's time somebody did something. 33. Verb forms. Statements. Ed. D. IED. 1. You jumped high. I killed a snake. He washed the car. You called Debbie. She washed her car. It rained yesterday. Albert played squash. He played the violin. We moved here in 1991. I worked for Microsoft. You answered correctly. You just called Debbie. We arrived at 9 o'clock. He lived in Fiji in 1976. My father died last year. They collected postcards. We visited Japan in 2007. Fiona visited her grandma. They lived in a big house. He enjoyed being a student. She kissed me on the cheek. The police stopped the car. World War II ended in 1945. Angela watched TV all night. The Vikings invaded Britain. Queen Victoria died in 1901. Uncle Jack married 5 times. He loved his friends very much. Last year, I traveled to Japan. Leonardo painted the Mona Lisa. The teacher tested our English. He lived in Devon all his life. I played tennis at the weekend. Poor Uncle Jack died of cancer. Yesterday, I arrived in Geneva. John wanted to go to the museum. We crossed the channel yesterday. She finished her work at 7 o'clock. Columbus discovered America in 1492. It happened one night in the winter. Last year I traveled around Europe. You wanted to talk to me, Mr. Atkins. I sometimes walked home at lunchtime. John Cabot sailed to America in 1498. She planned the event all by herself. The car exploded at 9:30 a.m. yesterday. The Martians landed near the aqueduct. I visited a client in London yesterday. Picasso painted in many different styles. She used the correct word in the exercise. They always enjoyed visiting their friends. I worked at Johnson & Co. from 1990 to 1995. She worked at the movie theater after school. The burglar considered using the fire escape. The Jurassic period lasted about 62 million years. If you stayed for the night, we could finish the job. Every morning, I walked to the office, no matter the weather. The 4 travelers passed a sleepless night, each thinking of the gift Oz had promised to bestow on him. Irregular verbs. 2. They knew it. He ate a mango. I bought bread. I made a table. She sang a song. You ate my cake. He gave me a gift. He wrote a letter. You saw the house. I went to the beach. He went to the park. I knew that once. I saw her every day. She went to the zoo. They went to cinema. We often went there. She went to the door. We came here in 1980. I met my wife in 1983. She grew up very poor. They went to the beach. He paid by credit card. I saw a movie yesterday. Last week I read a book. They went to the library. We ate lunch early today. We left the book at home. I lost my watch yesterday. Mary rode the bus to work. She wrote a letter to him. I ran 4 miles yesterday. Sophia and I met yesterday. That's the boy that hit me. Romans built strong bridges. He went to a club last night. The teacher went to the desk. We saw a good film last week. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. They sat at the beach all day. I went to the cinema yesterday. John drove to London on Monday. We came home earlier yesterday. Yesterday I went to the cinema. I went to the theater last night. We beat the home team yesterday. Cheryl flew to Brazil last month. Last month Hillary bought a Honda. Once he won £10,000 on the pools. They gave us an early appointment. I often brought my lunch to school. They got home very late last night. Janice bought a new watch last week. We gave her a doll for her birthday. I thought you could sit in the front. My parents came to visit me last July. She drew a beautiful picture in class. Susan bought her little sister a doll. This morning I went to the supermarket. We went to the cinema yesterday evening. Carmelita slept through the entire class. The boys took off the mudguards of their bicycles. They went to Australia last year on their holiday. My mother always went to the fish market on Mondays. They never went to school. They always skipped class. Yesterday we read all the explanations on English verbs. They built their own house with the help of some friends. During the 1930s he made several attempts to climb Everest. Did. 3. I just did it. I'm glad you did. They did agree with us. It did seem a bit strange. We did our homework last night. I did my maths homework yesterday. And that was the way it did happen. The way he did it reminded her of Alex. Sleep came without decision, as did the dream. After drinking some water I did in fact feel better. He did a lot of researching before he talked to me. Was. 4. It was known to them. A song was sung by her. I was in Japan last year. I was at work yesterday. A letter was written by him. David said that he was tired. Rome was not built in a day. Tom was in New York yesterday. Nothing about it was known to her. Harry Potter was written in English. Billy studied French when I was a child. He who never was sick worked the most. Rome was not built in a, or one, day. Guernica was painted by Picasso in 1937. I was in the kitchen when the phone rang. He played the violin when he was a child. Napoleon himself was once a crying baby. The religion we call false was once true. My camera was stolen while I was on holiday. The house was built during the 19th century. I was so thirsty I drank 2 bottles of water. That was the best ice cream soda I ever tasted. John Lennon died while he was living in New York. Nothing comes out of the sack but what was in it. He who pleased everybody died before he was born. The students shouted as the president was speaking. She was shy as a child, but now she is very outgoing. This street was once very quiet, but nowadays it's full of traffic. The new girl told me her father was a millionaire, but I don't believe her. I slept and dreamt that life was beauty. I woke, and found that life was duty. I don't know who my grandfather was. I am much more concerned to know what his grandson will be. Were 5. They were very pleased. I asked how old you were. A friend is, as it were, a second self. We were happy every time, when we met. His friends were loved very much by him. The children were thirsty when you arrived. Bod and Kate were my best friends at school. Had 6. He had a computer. I had some toast for breakfast. I would help you if I had time. She had a headache yesterday. You had better go now. Equals you'd better go now. Used to 7. We used to go there every year. Dad used to smoke, but not anymore. My father always used to tell us bedtime stories. I used to go to Brighton when I was a child. But I don't any longer. This street used to be very quiet, but nowadays it's full of traffic. Asked 8. I wish I had asked him. I asked the bank for a loan. Where are you going? She asked. I asked her but she didn't answer. He asked the witness to stand down. She asked me if I liked ESL lessons. She asked, do you like ESL lessons? He asked permission to leave the room. Some dude just asked me if I knew you. The police asked me questions all day. She asked him to leave, but he refused. Is there a problem? He asked sharply. The teacher asked me if I knew the answer. I left because you never asked me to stay. Morris asked me whether I needed any help. The teacher asked, do you know the answer? I asked him his name, but he didn't respond. I don't know why I asked, just idle curiosity. The interviewer asked her to speak into the microphone. Told 9. I have told you 20 times. They told us the dreadful news. She told me a surprising thing. I told you not to drink too much. I told myself not to be so jumpy. Our teacher told us a joke today. She told me she lived in Frankfurt. She told him to grub up the roots. I never told you, I wanna hold you. She told Fred to make himself useful. The old lady told me all her troubles. I told her to send the letter by airmail. She told him all her woes and problems. He told Hailing that he was keen to help. The teacher told us to look at the blackboard. She told me her mother doesn't like German food. Pierre told them some things he later regretted telling. Said 10. No sooner said than done. The least said the better. I heard what you said. He said, I don't feel well. Equals he said he didn't feel very well. She said, I live in Frankfurt. She said she lives in Frankfurt. He said, I can speak 5 languages. He said he could speak 5 languages. Negative. Did not, didn't. 11. I did not buy bread. I didn't sleep well. She didn't have time. He did not eat a mango. I did not kill a snake. You did not jump high. I did not make a table. He didn't wash his car. You didn't eat my cake. You did not call Debbie. He did not give me a gift. He didn't play the piano. He didn't work yesterday. He didn't like the movie. We didn't have any money. You did not listen to me. She did not write a story. They did not go to cinema. You did not see the house. You didn't close the door. He did not have a computer. They did not agree with us. He didn't come to my party. They didn't go to the beach. He said he didn't feel well. I didn't see you yesterday. You did not answer correctly. He didn't hear the telephone. It did not try to bite or scratch. We did not hear the telephone. I didn't see a play yesterday. Ron did not sign the document. She didn't see him last night. We did not sing at the concert. They did not collect postcards. He didn't like tomatoes before. Fiona did not visit her grandma. He did not drink milk at school. I didn't talk to John yesterday. We didn't sleep well last night. I did not like physics at school. I didn't used to like this music. I didn't want to go to the dentist. Last year, I didn't travel to Korea. She did not write a letter to him. They didn't go to Spain this year. Mary did not go to work yesterday. In the end, Sophia did not show up. She did not know anything about it. Yesterday we did not study Spanish. My mother did not crash into the van. The teacher did not test our English. He didn't go to bed early last night. We didn't come because it was raining. He did not do magic tricks at the party. They didn't give John their new address. We didn't do our exercises this morning. I didn't used to eat vegetables, but now I do. Jenny and Peggy did not help their brother. Mandy did not tidy up her room on Thursday. She said her mother didn't like German food. He didn't steal those ideas from the company. We didn't get home until very late last night. We didn't have time to visit the Eiffel Tower. I didn't see you yesterday. Were you in school? They did not stay at the party the entire time. They didn't study, so they didn't pass the test. You didn't show me the photos from the wedding. We did not live in a flat when we were in Paris. He didn't used to help me, but nowadays he does. My mother went shopping on Saturday, but she didn't buy anything. The weather was bad this afternoon, so we didn't have a picnic as planned. I felt embarrassed when the teacher asked an easy question, but I didn't know the answer. Last night I didn't sleep very well, so I got up at 5 and sat down to my computer. I tried to switch it on, but it turned out that there was a power cut. I went back to bed and gazed at the ceiling until the sun came up. Wasn't 12. Rome wasn't built in a day. Yesterday I was not at home. I was not listened to by you. Mr. Ward wasn't a rogue at all. The story was not written by her. We found out that he wasn't there. He wasn't in a position to help me. She wasn't right about the events. I wasn't sure whether you'd like it. That wasn't a very tactful thing to say. My attention wasn't really on the game. This money wasn't earned by honest means. She wasn't impressed by his limp handshake. She didn't even call to say she wasn't coming. He wasn't a very prepossessing sort of person. She wasn't senior enough to take such a decision. I wasn't just disappointed, I was absolutely shattered. We sneaked out while Jessie's mom wasn't in the room. Weren't 13. You were not thirsty. If only I weren't so tired. They were not pleased at all. We were not late for the train. They weren't in Rio last summer. It's a miracle you weren't killed. We had a wasted trip they weren't in. The girls weren't allowed out after dark. We weren't consistent, we played in spurts. Whoops, you weren't supposed to hear that. The children were not at home last weekend. There weren't beyond 20 people present. Somebody had screwed up. They weren't there. I felt we weren't given a fair crack of the whip. I called the police, but they weren't very helpful. It bothered me that boys weren't interested in me. Why weren't you at the meeting? Sorry, I forgot. It's a miracle you weren't killed in that car crash. We weren't sure about which route we should take. If you weren't my friend, there'd be a hole in my life. There weren't enough chairs, so I had to sit on the floor. The old methods weren't adequate to meet current needs. Things weren't so bad, after all. I was among friends again. It was a time when people weren't so hung up about health. The nuts weren't properly tightened and the wheel came off. Investors weren't concerned about short-term profits over the next few years.